So I've known that RTS was a genre for me for quite a while. I probably started playing strategy games before I was in high school. One of the most important factors in the games I played at this time was, well, money. If it was a strategy game and it was free, I probably downloaded it at some point before I dumped, this many hours into Dota 2. So today, I'm going to look back at 3 free RTSs that I've played in the past. The first game I'm looking back at is a classic by the name of Galcon 2. When I first saw this game on Steam, I was at a friend's birthday party in middle school. Some people had brought laptops, and on Steam he found this gem. What drew us into this game in the first place was this trailer. I mean, spaceships? Derby racing? The screenshots seemed to have nothing to do with the destruction derby we were promised, so we did what any bored 12-year-olds would do, and downloaded. While we wait for the install, oh, it's done. It took literally a second to install, as proven by this review we left all that time ago. Loading into that game for the first time was a treat. Looking at the main menu now, what I see makes sense, but for us, not knowing the mechanics of the game at that point, had no clue what the map meant. It was just arrows and blips that somehow correlate with game lobbies. Backing out, we just clicked free for all and started playing, and boy did we get slapped. I don't recall much from that night, except for when we burned the leg hair off one of our friends, but I do know that I installed Galcon when I got home, and this is the point in the video where I go back with new eyes. After making a new account, I'm brought back to the same main menu from last I played, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. There are a few game modes, but little in the way of explanation, so I clicked the first one, Nuke. Getting into my first lobby and starting my first game, my memory comes back to me. I remember to use the scroll wheel to select the percent of ships leaving the planet. I recall that bigger planets offer bigger production benefits, and I know to take planets of least resistance first. And all that being said, I do okay. At least until someone with a honker of a badge joins the lobby. The game tells me that I'm just an ensign, and I prepare for the ass being of a lifetime. And that's, more or less what I got. Of course, I don't mind losing. I'm very used to it, and I firmly believe that defeat paves the road to victory. So I lose. And I lose. And I lose. You know, for a game that seems to have no mechanics, I'm definitely getting finally ground to a pulp every game. So there must be something more to this. So I exit the lobby, I check the forums, and hey, there are actually beginner guides, and there are actually strats, believe it or not. Having read up on how to play the game, I head back into the game eager to try them out, but this seemingly random planet explosion thing is infuriating enough for me to leave this lobby yet again and re-queue for other modes. I lose most games in other modes as well, but at least they feel more controllable. Eventually, as lobbies empty out, I get put against bots and my win rate improves, but not by much. At this point, I decided my time with Galcon 2 was over, and I closed the game once again. Now obviously I bear no ill will towards Galcon 2, in fact I still regard it very fondly, and my friends and I spent hours on Discord discussing how planetary production and spaceships somehow relate to demolition derbies. If I recall correctly, we came to the conclusion that all production on a planet was put towards manufacturing cars when to strap them to rockets and use them as bombs. That would explain the linear trajectory of ships, but not the ability to redirect them. Next up is Istrolid. This game does not have a story like the last one, yet I've racked up considerably more time in it. Looking through Steam, probably filtering for both free-to-play and strategy, Istrolid immediately got my attention. It seemed to tick all the boxes. It's space-themed, which is a major plus for me at the time. It allows for building custom ships, which is extremely cool, and most importantly, it was free. The first thing on the main menu was the campaign mode, and that's where I head first. The campaign is just a battle through various fleet compositions and AI presets, and that isn't a knock on the game, by the way. The campaign is fun and challenging as well. It forces you to constantly redesign and improve your ship designs. Throughout you get a good feel for ship roles and their counters, weapon types and their counters, and all of the cool combinations of ships you can get. One of my favorites was having a big ship loaded with guns, components that modify the guns, and big ol' engines. Of course, these ships were expensive and absolutely not stable on energy. To supplement this, I would build big battery ships fitted to the brim with capacitors, and then give them modules to transfer power to the larger ship. Screen this with smaller gunboats and missile ships, and we have some fun. Looking at the game mode itself, this game is very promising as well. First, it has a territory control mechanic that I like from Company of Heroes. With only one resource, and vision on the entire map, excluding invisible units. The game is purely about bringing a superior fleet and superior micro. The more control points you own, the more money you get. The more money you get, the easier it is to hold more control points. Once one side holds every control point, you win. This can lead to pretty campy gameplay on the front line, with most fighting taking place in the outskirts and side points. On to the multiplayer. I started out spectating some games. Something I found interesting was that you can see mouse movements of players when spectating. I got into the lobby a few games later and got destroyed as expected. Then, well, they asked me to leave. And that means it's time for the next game. That brings us to the last game I have, Void. This game, I really have no story for. I have no clue how I found this one. The structure of this game is pretty interesting, however. So from these sack things, you produce drones, and then these drones can be sent to these pods around the map. Putting your drones into the pods will change their type, and each type has their own skills and advantages against other types. It's kind of like StarCraft, but instead both players are Zerg, and tech structures are placed across the map to fight over for either team to use. So it's not StarCraft at all, but you know what I mean, come on. After playing through the tutorial again after so many years, I go to multiplayer to test my skills, and oh, this game is actually dead. So, that's the end of Void, everybody. Now, I don't want to leave off the game that you guys can't play multiplayer in, so let's do one more game free. How's that sound? The next game is OpenRA, or Open Red Alert. This is an open source project to recreate the engine of Westwood's classics, that is to say, Dune 2000, Red Alert, and Tiberium Wars. And this is pretty faithful to say the least. The campaign for the first game is all there, well, except for the cutscenes, of course. They can't steal those, although you can play them if you have the disc for the original game. The missions have been faithfully recreated, and unlike the cutscenes, music is there, including the famous Hell March. Now, there is one thing special about OpenRA. After making the game from the ground up, the dev team decided to add in their own balance. That means that this isn't the Red Alert from the 90s. In multiplayer, the meta is completely different. Now, in my research, I found some old forum posts about the meta of Red Alert. It said that War Factory rush into 6 light tanks into rushing the base was the meta. The meta of OpenRA, however, seems to be a bit more refined. Recent tournament games focus much more on infantry play and early posturing to secure parts of the map. Now, rushing out War Factory does seem to still be meta, but that's not to build 5 light tanks or 5 heavy tanks, but more so to get a fast MCV out to claim an expansion, to get more ore, and build that economy up. Something else mentioned in that ancient guide was a Yak or MiG rush. Now, this couldn't be more different from the modern day. Every match I can find on YouTube had the radar dome / helipad / airfield coming out very late. So overall, the dev team seems to be on the ball with balance, and OpenRA is a very different game than Red Alert from years before. So that completes this week's video on 4 free RTS games. I'll be back next week with a video on Realms of Aether. Come back next Tuesday for that video, or watch last Tuesday's video on Company of Heroes 2.